Today we're going to give the final 6 Paradox starters their respected evolutions. I am extremely happy with these pieces, so let's see if you like them as well. Our first evolution is for Spiked Spine. I previously said that I wanted to move this line into a Spinosaurus looking dude, but with a big chunky mouth instead of the slender ones the real Spinos had. We started out by extending his eyebrow, like we did for the first 2 forms. This will help your design to feel less finished and gives the Pokemon a reason to evolve into the regular form. We then made sure to give him a bigger mouth, and we also gave him sharp and longer teeth. It was then time to bring in the sail on its back, since it wouldn't really feel like a Spinosaurus otherwise. After that we extended the spikes on his head, but we made sure to disconnect it from the sail in order to bring a bit more depth into the piece. The last small details we added were the scale-like features onto most parts of his body. The colors we used were a bit different than the colors of Feraligatr. Instead of using the lighter blue for his body, I wanted to keep the shade we used for our drawings. Crunching Chomp, the Paradox Pokemon. This Pokemon is known to be extremely aggressive. It attacks anyone or anything that wanders into their territory. They have one of the highest bite forces of any Pokemon to this day and can only be trained by the most gifted trainers. I think we did a good job on making this Pokemon feel more like a prehistoric version of himself. The subtle feature changes we used for this line did just enough to make them feel different, even though Crocs haven't changed much in real life either. Our second evolution is for Iron Waddle. We started out by replacing the white on his body with a rubber patch. We of course added in the lines next to it in order to add some depth into the design. We did need to add something on the place where the circles were on the bottom of his white belly. I thought basic yellow pins would work, and I was right. Our next step was to bring in the yellow shoulder patches, but I decided to make them spiky instead of round for this one. The last thing we did were the segmentation of the wings, and we prepared his face for the screen-like eyes. The color palette of Empoleon already looks pretty good, but I think the extra yellow parts made it even better. Iron Emperor, the Paradox Pokemon. The origin of this Pokemon is unclear. Some say it is a tyrant trying to conquer land to expand his territory, while others say it is benevolent and tries to help people in need. One thing is for certain, this Pokemon is incredibly smart and holds a huge amount of strength. This was one of those pieces where I realized how robot-like the original design looks. We just didn't have to change much to make Empoleon feel like a real robot. The third evolution is for Flaring Strike. Since we decided to use all the Mega forms for the Hoenn starters, we had to use Mega Blaziken for this one as well. The goal for this Pokemon was to make him into a Dragon Fighting type. This meant that it wouldn't be a Fire type anymore, so we had to figure out what to do with the straps on his arms. I made the decision to give him Draconic Ribbons instead, which would play into both of the typings. We also extended the eyebrows and the horn on his head, and we brought back in the tail, which we used for the first 2 stages. I must say that I struggled pretty hard on the color palette for this one. I don't really like the color palette of Mega Blaziken, so I tried to make a mix between that form and the regular one. I do think the end result looks too much like an electric type, but we fixed that for the shiny. Martial Monarch, the Paradox Pokemon. This Pokemon seems to be a devoted follower of the ways of Koraidon. It trains itself up until the point of exhaustion in order to be strong enough to defend its leader. They strike at incredible speeds with the draconic energy emitting from their bodies. I'm still not convinced on his color palette, but that's why the shiny looks the way it does. My take on the shiny was what this Pokemon probably would look like without the Paradox color rules. Only 12% of you guys are actually subscribed to my channel. Don't get me wrong, I really appreciate that you watch my videos, but if you enjoy my videos, I'd highly appreciate it even more if you'd subscribe. Once I'm done with all of these starters and the Pikachu and Eevee lines, we'll take on Paradox forms of legendaries and eventually mythicals. Well, you know what to do, just click that freaking button. Up next is the evolution for Iron Lantern. The first change we implemented was to bring back the electrical ears. We then had to figure out a way to use the tail for another combination between the electric and the fire typing. My idea for this stage was that he would carry a big spotlight on his shoulder instead of the lantern. The final changes were basically the transformation of a lot of the organic shapes into the blocky ones we usually give these future forms. This drawing really came to life when I added in the colors, and I'm really happy with the final addition to this line. Iron Spotlight, the Paradox Pokemon. This Pokemon is often used in lighthouses to guide the oncoming ships to safety with the big spotlight it carries at all times. In battle it uses its spotlight as a fire cannon, setting whatever it aims at on fire. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of the original line of these Pokemon, this has to be one of the best futuristic lines we made. The 5th evolution is for Iron Grace. We started off by detaching his arms in order to keep the aesthetic of this line the same. In our second stage we gave him ribbons, and I definitely wanted to bring that back into this one as well. I didn't just want to use the boring ribbons we used earlier, so I thought it would be cool to use the ribbons Quaquaval has on his regular design. This instantly made the design a lot more interesting, and it was then just time to add in the basic robotic features. We're talking about the rubber patch, the screen on his face, and the segmented hands of course. The colors were a bit tricky to decide on, since his entire body was blue already, and it took me quite a while to figure out which parts needed to be the lighted areas. Iron Swing, the Paradox Pokemon. This Pokemon is known to be one of the best dancers in the world. They are able to dance to any type of music, and they love to provide entertainment with their graceful movements. They use these movements in battle to gracefully evade and attack. I think this piece is really cool. I especially like the look of his shiny, because it gives me an AI feeling. It is now time for the last final stage starter, the evolution of Flowered Crown. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with this piece, since we already used the Mega and Gigantamax forms on the previous stages. Instead of taking on this drawing based off of those forms, I decided to mainly look at the features I give my designs. This is why I thought it would be cool to add rocky armor on top of his body, and we of course had to add the other details to fit him into the desert dwelling Pokemon he's supposed to be. I'm talking about the plant on his back, which has to look more like a cactus than an actual tree. We also continued to use his vines, and we decided to move the spikes away from the rocks and place them on the trunk. We did have to make sure that he could also sound like a poison typing. That's why I made his tongue look a bit stickier, and we made his teeth a lot sharper and bigger. I do have to say that I'm not the biggest fan of how I made this eye, but it is what it is, and I still think it looks pretty cool. Sturdy Titan, the Paradox Pokemon. This Pokemon likes to live in sandy and deserted areas. They are mostly seen as royalty in these areas. They are very protective over their young, using their sharp and venomous fangs to poison their attackers before using their rocky vines to toss them away. There have been little sightings of bird Pokemon in these deserts, because it appears that the size of the avian doesn't matter, because Sturdy Titan will still try to eat it. Like I just said, the eyes could definitely get an improvement, but the overall design looks pretty sick. Well guys, these were the last final stages we had to do. Just a Pikachu and Eevee line left. Let me know which one of these was your favorite, and goodbye.